They weren't just a group of bikers, they were a storm. Meet Satudarah MC, a motorcycle club founded in the Netherlands that quickly evolved into one of the most feared and unpredictable outlaw biker gangs in the world. They didn't just clash with giants like the Hells Angels and Bandidos. They outdid them in sheer chaos. Grenade attacks, bombings, all-out turf wars. Even some former Hells Angels crossed over to join them. In Satudarah, loyalty wasn't optional. It was everything. Cross them, and there were no second chances. In less than 20 years, they built a criminal empire that sparked biker wars across Europe. But what really made them different was their multicultural brotherhood. Race, religion, or background didn't matter. If you were loyal, you were family. If not, you were already a target. They've been officially banned in 3 countries and unofficially banned in many others. Even the Netherlands, where they started, eventually shut them down. But Satudarah adapted. In some chapters, you didn't even need a motorcycle to wear the patch. Rules changed based on location, except for one. Brotherhood came first, always. They were raided by police 14 times. Over 100 serious charges were laid. 63 chapters were shut down around the world. In some countries, just wearing their colors could get you arrested. One police officer even said that the Hells Angels looked soft compared to Satudarah, and yet they are still active, with over 1,000 members globally. They broke the rules, rewrote them, and kept expanding. Here's how it all started. To understand Satudarah, you have to go back, way back. In 1949, Indonesia gained independence from the Netherlands, but not everyone left. A group of soldiers, the Moluccans, had fought alongside the Dutch. When the Dutch pulled out, they didn't know what to do with these loyal fighters, so they relocated around 12,500 Moluccans to the Netherlands, promising them a better life. That promise was never kept. There were no homes, no warm welcome, just cold, bare-bones military camps. It was supposed to be temporary. It wasn't. Days turned into years and years into decades. By the 1990s, the Moluccan community still felt like outsiders in a country they were told to call home. That's when 9 men from the town of Moordrecht had enough. They formed a motorcycle club. But this wasn't just about bike, it was about identity. They named it Satudarah, which means one blood in Indonesian Malay. It was a message. We may be scattered, but we are united. One blood, one brotherhood, one purpose. The roar of the engine became a symbol of pride. The leather jackets weren't just gear, they were armor. Satudarah became more than a club. It became a home, a shield, and a message. Respect wasn't demanded, it was earned. Their black and yellow colors weren't chosen for style. Their logo, a 2-faced Native American warrior, had deep meaning. One face looks forward, the other back. It symbolizes strength, duality, and the constant struggle between past and future. Satudarah didn't limit itself to Moluccans either. They welcomed Dutch, Surinamese, and anyone who had been marginalized. It wasn't just a gang. It was a movement, a defiant statement. We belong here too. To truly understand Satudarah is to understand the pain of broken promises, loyalty given but never returned, and then finding the strength to rise and build something impossible to ignore. Every biker club has a patch. But Satudarah's patch is more than fabric. It's a story, a warning, a badge of survival. The 2-faced warrior represents resistance, endurance, and an unshakable will, a reflection of the Moluccan experience. Their full name, Satudarah Maluku, honors their origins, the Maluku Islands of Indonesia. Black represents struggle. Gold represents pride. Like other major outlaw clubs, they wear a 3-piece patch. The top reads Satudarah, the center displays the warrior, and the bottom names their territory. But don't mistake it for fashion. Wearing that patch means you've sworn an oath. Loyalty isn't optional. Betrayal isn't just disloyalty. It's war. In the early 1990s, those 9 men rode side by side through the Dutch countryside. Leather on their backs, wind in their faces, bound by something deeper than friendship. It wasn't just a ride, it was a declaration. People noticed. New chapters sprang up in Dutch towns, then Germany, Belgium, and even Indonesia. By 2012, Satudarah had grown beyond its roots. It was no longer a Dutch story, it was a global one. Chapters opened across Europe, Australia, and Asia. Why did people join? Simple. Brotherhood without borders. Unlike the Hells Angels and other old-school clubs, Satudarah didn't care about race. Black, white, brown, Arab, Asian. If you were loyal, you were family. That kind of unity made others nervous. In Germany, tensions exploded. Brawls with banditos and Hells Angels turned violent. In Sweden, streets echoed with gunshots. Back in the Netherlands, full-scale riots erupted. Clubhouses became bunkers. Inside, members planned, gathered, and performed rituals. Satudarah wasn't just riding anymore. They were claiming territory. They built more than chapters. They opened tattoo parlors, gyms, private security companies. Some were legitimate, others weren't. Rumors spread about drug trafficking, weapons, and darker dealings hiding behind business fronts. Police paid attention, governments got involved. Intelligence agencies monitored them. The media began calling them the multicultural mafia. But ask a member and they'd say, it wasn't about crime. It was about family. By the time the world realized how far Satudarah had spread, it was already too late. Over 40 chapters had sprung up globally. Hundreds of members were ready to fight, bleed, or die for the patch. But expansion brought heat. When Satudarah entered Scandinavia, they walked straight into a war zone. Denmark had already seen 2 violent biker wars. In 2017, a third began. Satudarah's arrival wasn't just noticed, it was taken as a direct threat to the reigning powers, the Hells Angels and their affiliates, AK-81. They opened chapters fast, often bringing in immigrants and outcasts. Their multicultural model, once seen as a strength, became a problem in Denmark's rigid biker scene. Satudarah didn't follow old rules, and that made them dangerous. Violence erupted. Gunfire rocked Copenhagen. Shootings happened in broad daylight. Innocent bystanders were caught in the crossfire. One woman filmed Hells Angels riding past her home with guns drawn. It was open warfare. In 2018, Danish police cracked down. Satudarah was officially banned, just as they had been in the Netherlands. But banning Satudarah didn't erase them. It pushed them underground. Some members disappeared. Others kept speaking out long after leaving. The old codes of the biker world clashed with a changing world. Satudarah didn't start the war, but once they arrived, they changed the game. While Denmark burned, Satudarah kept expanding. What began with 9 men and 9 bikes in the Dutch countryside became a global movement. Their black and gold patch could be found everywhere. Across Europe, including Germany, Belgium, Denmark, Sweden, Spain. Throughout Asia, including Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and even in South America and North America, with chapters in Suriname and Brazil. And still they ride. They reached the United States and Canada. Even Australia and New Zealand had riders wearing the patch. Satudarah was no longer just a motorcycle club. It had become a global network. Each chapter had its own crew, its own rhythm, but one rule remained above all. Loyalty to the club, no matter what. That was the code. Even as more countries banned them and authorities turned up the pressure, Satudarah didn't vanish. They adapted, changed strategies, and kept going, especially in Southeast Asia, where their influence continued to grow, one patch and one brotherhood at a time. They're still active. Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Satudarah has a presence in all of them. Local authorities are well aware. Governments across Southeast Asia are watching closely, and for good reason. Law enforcement believes Satudarah remains connected to European criminal networks involving drugs, weapons, and money laundering. For international crime units, Satudarah is a major concern. Despite raids, arrests, bans, and constant legal action, the Brotherhood hasn't disappeared. It's simply gone deeper underground. And here's the unexpected twist. The Hells Angels, without realizing it, opened the door for Satudarah's rise in Denmark. There was a local crew in Viborg called Viborg Hardcore. They had been affiliated with the Hells Angels for years, loyal, tested, and close. When they requested to become full members, they thought it was a formality. But they were rejected, not because of loyalty or commitment, but because some members were black. Despite personal disagreements with the policy among a few Hells Angels members, the club enforced an old American rule: no black members. That decades-old restriction sparked a shift the Angels didn't see coming. Viborg Hardcore walked away and joined Satudarah instead. That's how the first Satudarah chapter in Scandinavia was born. They didn't arrive quietly. Satudarah quickly gained a reputation for extreme violence, even surpassing the brutality of other outlaw biker crews. They weren't just riding, they were planting flags. Their presence was unmistakable, and it escalated fast. As their name began appearing more in the news, the pressure increased. In 2014, European governments stepped up. Germany took the lead, launching a full-scale raid that targeted 49 clubhouses. Authorities seized weapons, drugs, and evidence suggesting the organization was far more than just a motorcycle club. In 2015, Germany officially banned Satudarah. Clubhouses were shut down, patches were confiscated. The message was clear. Other countries followed. In 2018, the Netherlands, Satudarah's birthplace, banned the club, linking it to drug trafficking, illegal weapons trading, and violent clashes with rival gangs like the Hells Angels and Bandidos. From then on, even wearing a Satudarah patch in public became a crime. By October 2024, Norway's Supreme Court also issued a ban, citing the club as a threat to public safety. Authorities referenced serious crimes, violence that endangered innocent lives, and a culture of fear. They also criticized the club's claim of promoting diversity, arguing that Satudarah's actions didn't align with that image. In 2023, Denmark's Satudarah chapter shut down due to relentless police pressure and surveillance. But that wasn't the end of the story. Some members didn't leave, they rebranded. That's how Comancheros MC was born in the region. It was a new name, but the same faces. Authorities weren't fooled. They continued to link the group to drug trafficking, street violence, and gang warfare. A documentary series titled Gang War, Comancheros exposed how this rebranding effort tried to clean the slate while carrying the same criminal baggage. The shift from Satudarah to Comancheros split the Brotherhood. Old loyalties clashed with new ambitions. Turf wars and internal violence followed. Back in 2016, Satudarah set its sights on Australia. They attempted to establish a chapter in Sydney. The response was swift. Strike Force Raptor, a specialized police unit created to dismantle outlaw biker gangs, launched immediate action. 4 senior members of the Sydney chapter were arrested on charges of assault, drug trafficking, weapons possession, and ties to organized crime. Even the chapter president was taken down. It wasn't just Australia. Belgium launched investigations, Germany increased surveillance, Spain, Sweden, and Norway began monitoring all club activities, even in countries where Satudarah hadn't been officially banned. Like Sweden and Australia, authorities watched them closely. because while they may have lost their official status in some places, the Brotherhood still exists, just further out of sight. The pressure on Satudarah has never eased, and it's not only about the image, it's about crime. Across Europe and beyond, authorities now define Satudarah as a criminal enterprise, not just a biker club. Charges include drug trafficking, arms trafficking, extortion, and violent assaults. One of the clearest insights into the organization's darker side came from Germany. Yelder Dere, president of the Duisburg chapter, became a key figure. Between 2012 and 2013, he wasn't just leading bikers, he was trafficking large quantities of drugs, including 21 kilograms of cannabis and nearly 2 kilograms of cocaine, along with military-grade weapons like an AK-74 assault rifle. Under his leadership, the violence escalated. In 2013, a grenade was thrown at a Hells Angels clubhouse. Not long after, gunfire erupted at a cafe linked to them. The biker war wasn't just looming, it had already begun. Then, in a dramatic turn, Dare flipped. He turned informant and revealed the inner workings of Satudarah, its hierarchy, operations, and money laundering routes. His testimony broke the case wide open. He was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. A president turned informant, proof that even in a club built on loyalty, everyone has a breaking point. Satudarah followed the traditional outlaw biker structure. Each chapter had a president, vice president, sergeant-at-arms, treasurer, and secretary. To wear the black and gold patch, prospects had to prove themselves through loyalty, obedience, and hardship. But as the club expanded, things began to shift. In Norway, authorities discovered that most members of the Oslo chapter didn't even own motorcycles. Only 3 were officially registered bike owners. This raised serious questions. Was Satudarah still a motorcycle club, or had it become just a criminal organization hiding behind a patch? After a violent clash with rivals in Denmark, something unprecedented happened. Satudarah, the Hells Angels, and the Bandidos, longtime enemies, sat down together. The result was a fragile truce, not peace, but a temporary ceasefire. But Satudarah didn't slow down. They opened the floodgates, recruiting aggressively across borders. No race restrictions, no waiting, just numbers. And in the outlaw world, numbers equal power. Soon they were taking control of drug supply lines, weapons routes, extortion rackets, and prostitution networks, much of it previously controlled by the Hells Angels. They made it clear they didn't take orders from anyone. Former Hells Angels members even began defecting to Satudarah, including some who had left the Angels under tense circumstances. 2 figures played a big role in this: Sens Feinhout and Olaf Bonnesen. Feinhout was a former Hells Angel who had left in 2013 on good terms, making him a key asset. He quietly recruited former members and opened doors. Bonnesen, more controversial, had been part of a group called Black Sheep, which had tried to gain Hells Angels status. He had a dark past. In 1985, he was convicted for murdering a rival club president. Even decades later, the case haunted Denmark's outlaw scene, and Bonnesen continued fighting to overturn the conviction. Despite their differences, both men helped push Satudarah's expansion forward. For a brief moment, it looked like tensions might cool. A truce held between Satudarah and the Hells Angels, but it didn't last. Weeks later, violence returned. New attacks, retaliations, and bloodshed spilled into the streets. The Nordic countries remembered the last biker war, bombing, shootings, and bodies. Authorities weren't going to let that happen again. As Satudarah drew media attention, the Hells Angels and Bandidos went quiet, keeping a low profile. But Satudarah stayed loud, aggressive, and unafraid, refusing to back down no matter the cost.